Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. So for today's video, I want to kind of chat about ways you can best prepare yourself for any sort of emergency. Now, I'm not just talking about if you have like a gas leak in your house or if you have fire in your house, that sort of thing, but just in general, if you live in an area that might be prone to earthquakes or forest fires, tsunami, hurricane, any of those even natural disasters, then what would you do if you had to leave on a moment's notice? Would you be prepared? Would you have everything you need? Would you have the ability to grab everything you need? These are just some things that I've learned, and I've come to think about that we will also need to do to better prepare ourselves and our family so that we can leave on a moment's notice and have everything that we will need so that at least we can get by for a few days if we have to. So if you do enjoy today's video, please give it a thumbs up, as that does help my channel a lot. And if you enjoyed today's video along with the content you see here on my channel, I would love if you consider subscribing and joining my YouTube family. So hit that red subscribe button and the notification bell so miss any future videos from me. So this has become actually more to light recently because it hit a little close to home because in our province, we had this crazy heat wave, and then from that, we also had a very dry month of June, and our forests are tinder dry. So in the last couple of weeks, we have had hundreds of forest fires come up, not right in my area, but further north from me. And one of my really close friends, the community that she lived in with her family for the last 3 years that she did move away from, recently 90% of it was destroyed due to a forest fire, and these people had like less than 10 minutes, in some cases a matter of minutes, to leave. So most of them left with just the clothes on their back. They weren't able to grab anything. Some of them weren't even able to grab their pets. So this has kind of become more about that we all really should be a little more prepared. And they are saying with climate change and everything, this can become the new normal for us of hotter summers and drier summers. So this is definitely something that we all need to be more prepared for. And I think all of us can probably be a little more prepared than we need to be. So I'll include some information in the description box below, and I'll also try to include some links of where I found some information. Now, regardless, no matter where you live, I'm sure either your country or your province or state probably has some information on their government website with ideas on how you can better prepare yourself for some sort of emergency. I know here in Canada, our government Canada has a website, and then the province of BC also has some information on their website. So there's definitely lots of resources. So the things that I'm going to talk about here isn't necessarily a set in stone thing. This is just what I've researched and learned. There are really important things to be prepared in an emergency. So bear with me. I am also looking at my phone a little bit as well because I have a lot of notes here. I don't want to forget. Yeah, so bear with me with that. So one thing, there's 3 things that they say you should be doing. You should know the risks, make a plan, and have an emergency kit and a go bag ready to go. So when it comes to knowing the risks, you want to understand the area you live in. What type of natural disasters could you possibly have? Do you live by the ocean? Is a tsunami possible, or a hurricane? Do you live in the prairies where there might be tornadoes? Do you live like in, around where I live, and like same with like California and stuff, we all live where there's possibility of earthquakes because of where we live. So it's good to kind of understand what the possible things that could happen in your area. Further north from us, we know that there's a good chance of a lot more forest fires because of how many trees and stuff are there and that sort of thing. So these are all things you want to kind of learn, and also learn what could trigger some of these disasters. So is there something in the weather that can trigger it and that sort of thing. So definitely I think it's important to know everything about where you live and what possible risks can come from that. The second one is to make a plan. So this one is actually really important and something that I know my husband and I really need to talk about, and then talk about with the kids as well, so that they have an understanding if there would be a situation where we did have to leave and that sort of thing. So you want to have an emergency plan. So you want to plan where you would meet, plan out various scenarios on where you meet. So if you're not all at home, if say my husband's at work or I'm at work, the kids are at school, like where would we want to meet? And how will we get in touch with each other? So, and then another one is, keeping your emergency plan in writing so it's easy to access. So this is something that you want to have maybe in a general area of your house. You want to have it with your go bag and an emergency bag. Maybe you have a copy of it in your glove box of your vehicle. So you can have this in numerous different places, just have multiple copies, and so that everyone's made aware of it. And then you want to have a household plan. So you want to know what emergency exits you have. If you had to leave from, say, the upper floor, where is there a good spot that you can leave from there? And meeting places. Where would you want to meet as a family, especially if you had older kids and they're a little bit more independent? Where's a prime area that you'd want to meet? You want to have a safe idea. So you basically want to make copies of important documents such as your insurance papers, and also have some up-to-date family photos in case someone goes missing, so that way you could give it to the police. And then keep any original important documents, maybe keep them somewhere safe. Like we have a safety deposit box at our local bank, and we keep all our original documents there, like birth certificates and stuff like that, because then we know that they're safe because they're fire grade and that sort of thing. So you want to keep stuff like that safe. And also, one thing I do as well is for important things like our photos and stuff like that, I keep a copy of the hard drive at another household and the same copy at home, so that hopefully only one of them gets destroyed, if any of them does get destroyed, and we haven't lost those photos and stuff like that. As far as your workplace goes, learn the emergency plan. Find out from your managers or your supervisors what is the emergency plan in an event of one of these events. Know what's supposed to happen, how do you get in touch with people, and that sort of thing. So when it comes to work as well. Now when it comes to children, especially when we have younger children who might be in daycare, who will be in school, and that sort of thing, you want to find out from the school or from the daycare what their emergency plan is in this scenario. So how would they handle it? What would they do? You also want to find out if say for some reason you or your spouse couldn't go get the kids, is there a way to have someone be able to get permission to come pick up your child? Do you have to compile a list? Like I know for us, we do have emergency contacts, but we don't just have one. We actually have both our parents are on there as emergency contacts for our kids because they live in the local area. My brother and sister-in-law are also on there. They don't live in the same city as us, but they live close enough that if needed to, I'm sure they could do something to be able to get them. So it's really important to have those trusted family members or friends and find out how you can have them added as a potential to pick up your kids in the event of an emergency, because you just never know where people are going to be at, and if you need to get your kids picked up, you might have a close friend that you trust that can go pick them up if you're not able to get there. If you have pets, you want to plan for where would your pets go. If you had to stay in a hotel suddenly that didn't allow pets, do you have a place, of a place that can take them? So research in your area. Are there borders or doggy daycares or somewhere, pet hotels or whatever, somewhere that you can take your dog in an event of emergency and they can keep your dog if you do end up in a situation where you can't take your dog with you. Safe home instructions. So ensure that your smoke detectors, your carbon monoxide detectors are all working, the batteries are all up to date. Make sure you know where your fire extinguisher is, make sure it's up to date as well. So all these different things, as well as make sure you know where your first aid kit is, and band-aids and all that kind of stuff as well. And also it's really important, especially as the kids get older, to also teach them this, but know how to shut off your water, how to shut off the power, and how to shut off the gas to your house. These are 3 things that are good to know how to do. We know that ours, for example, ours is downstairs in the basement suite. So we would have to go down to the suite to be able to access that, which is fine. If we had to go to an emergency, it would be fine. But it's good to know where all these things are if you have to suddenly shut these things off and you don't be scrambling in the time to figure this out. And also another thing is to teach your children how to call 911. Now, most of us don't have landlines. Most of us just have cell phones. So, there is the option on our phones to hit emergency and then you can call 911. So show the kids how to do that. Kids are very smart. If you show them how to do something, they'll know. But also educate them on when the appropriate time is to call 911, because we don't want them just randomly calling 911. And also, have somewhere written down or somewhere a phone number of a close friend or a family member that if something happened to, say, my husband and I, then my kids would be able to dial a phone number of someone they could call. For extra help, if they need someone to come over and that sort of thing. So those are some really important things when it comes to making your plan. These are things that we probably don't think about or think, well, it might never happen to us. But then I look at, for example, at this local town that just got destroyed. They didn't think that it was going to happen. That town's been around for decades. So it's one of those things that, life can change in a moment's notice. So it's good to have these things and have these discussions. Now, we always hope that these discussions that we're having are for the what if situation, not for when it happens. Hopefully it's the what if, but we have to plan for these things. That's the reality of it. And these are things that would make things definitely a lot easier. The last thing it's good to have is you want to have an emergency kit in your house, as well as a go bag, because number two reasons. One, like you could be in a situation where you've lost power, and that sort of thing. So you need ways to be able to see at night, charge your phones and that sort of thing, or a situation where you suddenly have to leave. So that's where a go bag is really handy. If you know where emergency kit is, you can throw it in, great. But if you just have the option to just quickly grab and go, the go bag, well, hence the name, the grab and go bag, is something that's really helpful. So as far as your emergency kit, these are some things that's recommended. Now you might modify it slightly depending on your family and that sort of thing, but some things they say that's good to have in there is you want to have non-perishable food items for 3 days to a week, and make sure you have a manual can opener, not a powered one, which seems self-explanatory, but you know, you just want to make sure you have one of those. For as far as water, they say you want 4 liters per person. So for example, we're a family of 5, so we should have 20 liters of water for drinking and sanitation. We want to have a phone charger, a battery bank, or inverter, and if you do have a battery bank in there, or a battery bank, you want to make sure that you have it charged. So make sure you go through your kit, you know, once a month, make sure your batteries are all charged and everything else. So it's definitely something you want to go through, not just sit and leave it for a while. You want to have a battery powered or a hand crank radio, so some way to communicate, because like I know, for example, in this local community that lost most of the town because of the fire, they also lost cell service in the area. So they had no way to communicate with anyone in that area because the towers went down. Also have some battery powered flashlights, and have a few of them, and then also in that have extra batteries. So make sure for anything you have that has a battery, like a flashlight, the radio, and that sort of thing, that you have the extra batteries in case they go flat. And then honestly, when it comes to power banks, I'd probably have a couple of them in there, and then I would just make sure they're charged once a month, so that way they're good to go at any given time. You want to have a first aid kit and medications. So you want to have maybe one spot in your house that your medications are located, so you could quickly grab them if you had to go somewhere, and then they'll have the first aid kit already in there. And also make sure you check your first aid kit periodically too, because there's some things that do expire, so you want to make sure that your first aid kit is all up to date as well. You want to put in there any personal toiletries, so you can always put like reusable, like store-bought toothbrushes and stuff like that in there, just so you have it in case you need it. If you wear glasses or contacts, make sure you have extra contact lenses in there. The worst that can happen is you're leaving and your glasses break, or your contact lens rips and you're kind of stuck. So, and if you have an old pair of glasses that, you know what, they're not your favorite style, but the prescription's still correct, throw those in there as well, because it doesn't hurt to have them in there. You want to have a copy of your emergency plan. So copies of important documents like your insurance papers, maybe your guys' birth certificates, stuff like that, just so at least you have a copy of them. So if you need to like look up contact your insurance company, you have the ability to do so if you don't have the original. Some cash and small bills. So you want to have a variety of denominations, because you don't know when you'll be using them or where you'll be using them. If say you have no access to a debit machine or credit card machine because maybe they're down, it's good to have some cash. I always, like when we're traveling, for example, I always have between $200 and $300 in cash. I usually don't touch it. Usually it sits there. And also my wallet, I usually have about $100 in cash just sitting there. I always actually forget that I have it. I'm like, oh, I have money in here. But I don't really use cash much, but it's good to have on hand just in case you need it to grab something. You want to have some garbage bags and toiletries for personal or towelettes for personal sanitation. So just any way to kind of do a quick cleanup, depending where you are. You want some seasonal clothing and sturdy footwear and emergency blankets. So emergency blanket you can easily put in there. If you have some clothes that maybe aren't your favorite, you could put them in there as well, as long as they still fit and everything. And as far as sturdy footwear, you may not necessarily put them in there, but make sure you have them, know where they are, so you can easily just grab them and get out the door kind of thing. I mean, ours is by the back door, so ours would be pretty easy to grab at. And then the other thing is that, for example, we live in an area that could get earthquakes, so it's suggested that have a dust mask with you, because of course if there's been an earthquake and buildings have come down or whatever, there could be lots of dust. So dust mask is actually a really good idea. And also even having a mask if you're in an area that could get like forest fires and really smoky, a mask wouldn't be bad either because it could protect you from all the smoke in the air. So those are some things that can be in an emergency kit. You can also have a few other things, like if you want to have some things in there like coloring stuff for the kids, you could throw that in there as well. You know, some playing cards and stuff like that if you want to have some things that would, I guess, entertain you, if you will, in there. Now, as far as a grab and go bag, this is a bag that you would literally just be able to take out with the door and grab it and get out the door. Now, this is something that maybe is a better idea to maybe keep in your vehicle, so that, especially maybe your primary vehicle, or but then that way you're able to just kind of get in and go. And also, speaking of your vehicle, it is hugely, hugely important that you should probably have at least half a tank of gas in your vehicle, because the worst thing you want to do is you want to have to leave and you run out of gas because you only had 50 kilometers left in your tank. And sometimes you don't know where you have to go. So like some of these people had to travel like 3 or 4 hours to be able to go and report somewhere. So you want to have at least half a tank of gas in your vehicle so that you can just go. Now, what they're recommending in a go bag is you want to have some food that's ready to eat and some water. So you want to think of things that you could easily just eat right then and there. A phone charger or and battery pack. So again, same as the emergency kit, you want to have something that means to charge your phone. Now, if you don't have cell service, then obviously that's not going to help. But if you're able to get cell service, then you definitely want to be able to keep your phone charged so you can keep in contact with friends, family, emergency officials, and that sort of thing. You want to have a radio in there. So bear in mind that if you have some of these things in your go bag, you don't necessarily have to have them in the emergency kit. As long as you have them in one of these bags, I wouldn't necessarily have them in both. But you definitely want to have these things so you can grab them. Now, it would be ideal if your emergency kit was located somewhere that you could easily grab that as well when you go out the door. But also, it's actually good to have some of these things. If you live in a two-story house, a multi-story house, have maybe a smaller version of the kit on, say, the second floor and one on the first, and then maybe the bigger one on the first floor in case you can't get down to the second floor or the first floor. Another thing is having a small first aid kit and personal medications, personal toiletry items. Again, a copy of your emergency plan, your insurance papers, and that sort of thing. Again, have some cash in it. Have a local map with the family meeting place on it. So kind of in case you're not able to access Google Maps, for example, have a map of your area so that at least you can kind of look around the area and know where some places are if you're not that familiar with it. Seasonal clothing and blankets. Again, I would just take some clothes that maybe you have an old jacket or some old pants and that sort of thing. That you don't really wear very often anymore, and that you could easily just have sitting there and not worry about not having it. Having some pens and a notepad in case you have to write some important information down, and that sort of thing, and a whistle. So those are some things that are really good to have in those bags. Now, obviously, you might modify it depending on your family and everything else, but like as far as food, like that's where granola bars and those Cliff Bars and that kind of things are really good for these things like that, because they don't expire for a long time and they can sit there for a while as well. Now, I'm going to include in the description box below some additional stuff that they have suggested to put in the emergency bag. It might be a little excessive, may not be, but I just want to put it in there in case you're looking for some more ideas. And also, you want to always make sure that you have your wallet handy. So you want to make sure that, like we have ours beside our bed, so you can easily just grab it and go with you, because the worst thing you want to have happen is that you leave the house with no ID, nothing to identify you with. And that's really important to do that as well. So have it maybe accessible so that it's by you when you're during the day, and then at bedtime have it be on your bedside table, so that way you could just quickly grab it and kind of get out the door kind of thing. And it also doesn't hurt to have some clothes that are kind of nearby, so that if you did have to quickly leave, you could throw on a sweatshirt or whatever, and some socks, and kind of, depending on how much time you have to leave, if you have to leave on a moment's notice. So these are some things that I've been kind of researching lately. It's kind of hit a little close to home, just because I did have one of my best friends, the community she used to live in is like basically mostly destroyed. So it's a really sad situation. And most of these people had less than 10 minutes to get out, and some of them weren't even home. They were at work or wherever, so they didn't have a chance to go home. So having your go bag in your vehicle is really handy that way as well, because if you did suddenly have to leave from wherever you were and where you were at was not at home, then you have it with you. So those are just some things I'm hoping that will give you guys something to think about and maybe plan. None of us hope that, you know, we have to go through this, and we hope that we prepare for it, but we never have to actually go through with what we prepared for. But you know what? You just never know these days with like climate change, for example, that's impacting where I live. And you know, you just never know when these things will happen, and you want to make sure you're prepared so that you and your family are safe, and that you're not scrambling if you had to suddenly go stay in your vehicle or in a hotel. At least you know that you had, you know, some clothes and you have something to eat and that sort of thing. And that you're prepared if you have to drive a bit further, then you have like your gas tank is at least half full. So that way you're able to get a little bit further if you have to go a little bit further before you can hit a gas station. So that's going to be it for today's video. I hope it gave you lots of information and some ideas on how you can best prepare your family. Let me know in the comments below if you've done this with your family, or if you have an emergency kit or a go bag and that sort of thing. I will definitely be chatting with my husband. We'll definitely be taking a look at doing this, just because we do want to make sure we're prepared as best we can if, knock on wood, something like this were to happen where we live. So if you did enjoy today's video, please give a thumbs up, as that does help my channel a lot. And if you did enjoy today's video, along with the content you see here on my channel, I would love if you consider subscribing and joining my YouTube family. So don't forget that red subscribe button and the notification bell so you miss any future videos from me. Thank you so much for watching my video today, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
You had me at a low, 'cause where you go is where I go. I don't need nobody.